All right, pulling this up. Okay, so this is weeks 16 and 17, the recap of my data analysis job hunt. Just to preface this, the purpose of this presentation is to keep me accountable and improve my presentation skills. Therefore, it's not created to engage an audience. So therefore, you will likely not be engaged. However, I have changed the beginning of my presentation style to hopefully make it more engaging, kind of tell them in the form of a story. So let's just get right into it. Oh, my keyboard is not connected to... Okay, well, that's not... I forgot to delete that. Too bad. Okay, so to start off these 2 weeks, I had 2 job interviews coming up. So I decided I'm going to spend a lot of my time working on behavioral interview questions because one of the last one of the last interviews I did, I completely botched the behavioral interview questions. I didn't have my story straight. I hadn't practiced them. I had written one of my stories out, but I hadn't told it aloud, so I didn't know how long it was, and it was way too long and way too convoluted. So did a lot of research on that, as well as practice them. I spent 20 hours working on them over these 2 weeks. The questions that I think are pretty decent now are these questions. The timer's going off for the work I want to do today, but going to continue doing this. So I won't read through each of the questions. If you want to know my answers to each of these questions, I will do that at the end of this. So out of those 2 interviews, I did get one offer. The job offer was actually from the guy I met in the club, who was part of a small consulting firm. When I say small, I mean like 2 people, 3 now. So my advice from what I learned so far, I suppose I got lucky. As well as, I think the aspects that really got me this job, one, having my resume in order. I spent a lot of time working on my resume at the beginning of this job hunt, and then as soon as I would get a new skill, I would update it, make it as tidy as possible. I do go over the resume later in this presentation. As well as networking, I think is a much better strategy than applying to the LinkedIn, job applications. I'll just pull up an example. If you're looking for a data analysis job, I assume you know this. But if you look at just an entry-level data analyst position on LinkedIn, you will likely find, please go to jobs. Okay, let's look at data analyst. Come on. LinkedIn's going real fast right now. This is awesome. Let's do it. Okay. It says green jobs though, so I will take that off. Reset that? Okay, there we go. So, data analyst. 900 applications. 900. For one position. What do you think your odds are? They're terrible. So, you could, apply to 1,000 jobs, and then you'll on average get one, but the variance is huge, so you might just get lucky or unlucky and have to apply for another 1,000 jobs. So, I think networking, which I include cold emailing under that, I think that counts, to be your main strategy of applying for jobs. So, for example, Matt Pickering, find his email address and email him. Contact info. It's not there. This is actually good news. So, whether you think surprisingly it's good news, because that means less people will have his email address. So what you could do is, let's look at Matt Pickering. Go to hunter.io. There's a couple of software you can use, a couple of different software you can use to look up email addresses. Matt Pickering. Nope, I gotta do company, I believe. Northwest Cascade. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. What you could do is, oh, there you go. Here we go. Okay, Jason at Northwest Cascade. So then I think it's safe to assume that his email address is either recruiting at Northwest Cascade, Matt Pickering at northwestcascade.com, or Matt at northwestcascade.com. So I would email all three of those email addresses with whatever your cold email template is, along with your resume. And the reason that's good that his email address isn't there is he will get a lot less emails about the job offer. The other interview that I had was actually through a cold email when his email address was not anywhere on the web. I had to guess it. So that's my recommendation, as well as live networking. If you find someone that's in the industry, talk to them about it. And if they're like, hey, okay, this position, you think you should think about it, then go for it. I wouldn't necessarily go out expecting people to give you job offers, but I think it's just good to get more connections for professional and non-professional reasons. So, this is okay. All right, animations aren't set up right, but we'll deal with it. So, now my data job hunt is over. Wrong. I could be let go in 3 months or 3 years. Since it is a very small firm, I would assume business is quite volatile. So I want to be prepped for the future, because I don't think job security comes from having a secure job. I think it comes from your ability to secure a job. So there's still work to be done. I will continue this work as my data career hunt, not as my data job hunt. Data career hunt. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Data career journey. Rolling with the punches here. Okay. So I will still be doing these presentations, maybe less frequently, but I think all of the principles or the reasons that I'm doing this presentation, I still have a reason to pursue those, such as my speaking and being accountable, as well as still developing my career. So now, since my career is young, my first goal is to develop my career skills. So 2 questions: how do I improve my ability to secure a job, and what are my career goals? What do I want to go after? So I talked to some people about career skills that are independent of my field, that are skills that are good for any career. In other words, increase my ability to secure a job in any field. And talked to my mom, talked to my dad, talked to a few other people, and my dad hooked me up with this guy who worked in HR for a long time. So, fucking bingo. That's awesome. He gave me some really good advice. So, the 4 main things he went over is 1, personal brand. I still want to research in how to exactly utilize this, but it's basically what are you providing and what makes you stand out from other applicants, and knowing that can really you can really market yourself better. And then second is networking. He gave me some real structured advice on how to go about networking. Instead of I had heard networking is important, but I'm like, what does that mean? How do I go about doing that? Why would I do that? So in short form, he said initiate some career related conversation. He suggests reviewing your resume or having them give you advice on your resume, and then you develop a social connection with them and keep in touch with them every 3 to 12 months. And then so that's, you're not asking for a job or anything, but if a job comes up at their company that you'd be a fit for, hopefully you'd come to mind and then be like, hey, there's this job, blah 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 blah. So as you can probably tell from me explaining this, Still got to figure out the weeds of why I would do this, how I would do this. I feel like there's a third thing to say, but I don't know what it is. Okay. Next is interview skills. This is what really sparked me into, okay, what are some other career skills I could focus on? Because while I was working on behavioral interview questions, I figured this could be used in any job field. For example, I think like 2 years ago, I was applying to Target. They threw some behavioral interview questions at me. I didn't know that's what they were at the time, but I was like, I don't have anything. So that's just an example of another industry. Some jobs don't do it. They don't really do behavioral interview questions. More so just conversing through whatever technical skills you have and stuff like that. But otherwise, like the people skills within your interview are still important. And then the fourth is like the competency model of your field, which is pretty much what are the technical skills or skills required to complete whatever tasks you need to do for your field. So for data analysis, it'd be like, okay, SQL, Excel, Tableau. That's a very brief summary. And then, presentation, data cleaning, data preparation, blah, 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 blah. I think it's like the Australian data science competency model I looked at. Split it into some pretty good categories. It was the business life cycle. So that would be starting with a business question, data acquisition, data preprocessing, data transformation, data modeling, and then tuning the model, data visualization, and then presentation to stakeholders. That was business life cycle. And then you got your technical skills, such as like coding and statistics and whatnot. Those were the two main components of it, I would say. So, career goals, short version, I don't know. That's my current career goal, is to figure out what are my career goals. There are a couple of potential paths I could go down. One is continuing down the data analyst path, as well as branching into data science or engineering, which is kind of just picking which career in data I might want to do. And then in terms of where I want to go, I could go after the manga/FANG companies, or I could go after freelance/contract work, or I could just start working at a company where I agree with the vision. I don't know which of those I want to do, so my plan is just to kind of experiment with all those, starting with freelance and contract work, which I am excited because I find that's more interesting. There's a lot more business skills that are required for that, and I find that interesting. So that's the end of the overview. Now I'll be getting into the detailed recap. Honestly, this portion of the recap I would only use for reference. I wouldn't go through and watch it just for entertainment, because I don't think it'll be very entertaining. It's going to be pretty long. But if you find any of these sections interesting, I would flip to those, and then, yeah. Okay, so the resume that landed me the job, here it is. What do I have to say about it? I got my technical skills up here, as well as poker and decision making based on simulation data. If you play poker, then that's an awesome skill to have, because then they understand. If they don't play poker, they might. They also might be like, oh, it's gambling. Get that out of here. But considering job, the odds you are landing a job interview is pretty low. I think it's nice to have this little X factor in there. I think it'll help me more than hurt me. And you got some soft skills here. What I did was, I think the biggest changes I made, one, putting employment history at the top, because this internship I did machine learning in Python, and that's very attractive to someone who's hiring a data analyst, I would say. So I bolded that and underlined it as well. And then that's really the only technical skills I have in work experience. I did do some data analysis on surveys in my sustainability internship, but yeah, I would still say these two other positions are more helpful because they display some soft skills as well as personal skills. being a manager at Ice Arena, having to lead a team, as well as being a treasurer of a fraternity, which had to deal with a lot of, it's like more managerial roles, holding people accountable, and conflict management, stuff like that. There's a lot of small improvements that can be made on here that, I don't remember all of them. One of them was really just removing location, because that's not really necessary. You can put your location here. And then what else? Oh yeah, big one. I like putting the skills learned in each of the bullet points. I'll talk more about how this relates to behavioral interview questions. There's kind of like a new template that I think is coming about instead of STAR. Okay, next, since I think personal brand is very important, or marketing myself is very important in terms of my ability to secure a job. So this was my LinkedIn picture. It's good, for sure. I think it could definitely be better. I see a lot of other people's LinkedIn pictures, and I think, oh man, I wish mine was like that. So what I was going to do, or what I did, there's this app called Remini. Don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But they would take, 8 of your selfies, and then they would produce a LinkedIn professional picture with whatever background you wanted, or not whatever background you wanted. They had a lot of options. But instead, I just used AI to kind of enhance this picture. It may not look that different at first glance, but I think the coloring is the big difference, because I feel like my face is super shiny or white here. Background's also pretty light, so not as good contrast. Now the background's a little darker, as well as the lighting on my face being a little bit better. And then one other thing I changed is I shifted myself up, so my head's near the top of the picture, which I think looks a lot better. Before, I think it was in the center. Didn't realize that this looked so much better until I did it on accident, to be honest. I had also taken screenshots of LinkedIn pictures that I thought looked really good and tried to kind of mimic those a little bit, and the heads do tend to be higher towards the circle. So, yes. Okay. And I tried to use Remini to make, just a new picture where I could pick the background and whatnot. But this is what came out, which does not look like me at all. So I didn't use that. I'd see some people had success with it, but not me. Okay, networking. So first thing I want to show you is networking spreadsheets. So I think it's real nice to have your network kind of written out and stuff. So some of the fields that I think, like the basic fields I think you need. 1, name of the person. 2 would be contact info, but this is date of last contact, and then interval, how often you want to contact them, and then the next contact date. I initially started doing this with friends, because once he told me about this, I'm like, wow, I could use this with a lot of my friends. Since I just graduated college, it'll be a lot harder to keep in touch with them via the old methods I used, which would just be like, kind of being around. But so, and then also some activity to do with them, and then like if I have plans with them, what it is to do without a set date, and then their expertise, like what would you contact them for? What, like, let's say I have a question about something, could Google it, or maybe just ask one of the people I know, which I think asking somebody versus Googling it has some more benefits. 1, I think the social interaction is good. 2, a little more social connection. 3, you can get a much more, detailed response to your question. Also, I think it's important to know what expertise you provide, so what somebody else can provide you for, because if you really don't provide anything... Oh no! The bath, it's so loud. My mom put on me. The piping is on the wall right next to a wall, or right on this. Yeah, it's right there. It's really loud. I also want to practice my enunciation because I feel like it's been maybe average or subpar for me so far. What am I, Dr. Seuss? Okay, so networking also. I want to start professional networking. I did some non-professional networking. They're just talking with friends. And then also I want to know what I can provide in a professional and non-professional relationship. After listening to some podcasts, I find that's pretty important because you want to be able to give them something. If you can give them anything, then like why would they talk to you? So, yeah. Personal brand. So I'm working on the PwC's personal brand workbook. I also still want to work on figuring out why and how to use this. No, that is too tall. I cannot put my arm on that. I've had this shirt for how long? I feel like I would have been like, no, that by now. But anyways, the first part of the personal workbook is like, what skills do I provide? At the beginning, it asks you like 5 different questions about like, oh, hey, what skills do people say you have? And then what skills were most important when you were in this leadership role or something. I don't remember all the questions. And then at the end, it says to validate. So I went and actually asked people what skills they think make me stand out. And the 4 that popped up so far, just from asking my family, are these 4: outgoing and social, ability to apply math and data to everyday life, driven and disciplined, and then smart. I like to rephrase smart as good at problem solving because smart feels like more of a fixed trait, whereas problem solving, I feel like there's more growth available there, so I like to say that instead. I also think it's more accurate. Yeah, so next, probably going to ask some friends about that, and then also, my dad made a good point about also what makes you the same as everybody else, because if I say I'm just good at math, well, so like, you know, you need to do that to be a data analyst or a data scientist, so it doesn't make me stand out as much. And then the little peek into the future of this personal brand workbook is your why and some weaknesses. I can't really elaborate on those because I have not read too much about it. So, moving on. These weeks work rate. I worked about 2,000 minutes. Pretty nice. Spent most of it on non-technical skills, i.e. behavioral interview questions. And I spent about 180 minutes per day, which I'm okay with. That's good. So my behavioral interview questions. Okay, now I'm just gonna go through them, practicing pretty much. Got a little folder right here. I got notes written about a lot of them, but I don't think. Okay, 5-year plan question. I also did I'll take a video of me and then I put it in here so I have some reference for it. I also have a slideshow for going over it. So I'll pull that up. I'm going to try not to read off of it, but I will have it here just so it's easier for me or you guys to follow along, I suppose, because I don't remember all this off the top of my head, to be honest. Okay. So, interview asks, what is your 5-year plan? In the coming years, my top priority is professional growth. I want to focus on skill development rather than aiming for the highest salary possible because I want to invest in the long term. I think investing in my technical skills as well as improving my presentation, communication, and storytelling skills has a much greater potential for long-term growth. So, in short, my plan for the next 5 years is skill development. A quick note on this. I think it could be better if I include the company I'm interviewing for in this 5-year plan. Like, for example, you guys seem to have really good professional growth, so that's why I want to talk with you guys. But this answer, it can be independent of whatever company I'm interviewing for. Okay, so next one. You got conflict, setback, or challenge story. Come on. Online, I don't need you. Is this? Okay. So tell me about a challenge that you faced. So I'm going to tell you about the time that I was treasurer of my fraternity. So when I was elected into office, I found out two things. One, we were a few $1,000s in debt. Not good. Another is that previous treasurers would write off 4 to 5 members worth of dues, just assuming that they wouldn't be able to get them to pay. So when I'm in office, I'm like, okay, I would like to fix this debt. And then I think, well, if I chop down these number of write-offs to a much lower number, we could clear the debt. So what I did is I implemented a conflict management system and then, or for dealing with different types of payment conflicts, and then asserted it for the entire year. And then by the end of the year, I was able to chop down the number of write-offs from 4 to 5 members worth of dues to only half a member's worth of dues, which cleared our debt. Yeah, there's that one so far. I think my tone at the very end could have been better because it felt like it wasn't tied up. And then there's also a follow-up question. I don't want to practice that right now. Okay, next will be how I want to be managed question. I actually have not practiced this yet, but okay. Optoelectronics, internship story. This one's going to be tough. This one's tougher, for sure. This is brutal. Okay. So tell me about your optoelectronics internship and what you did in there. So first, I'll set the stage. There's this special material, and if you put this special material inside of a window, the window will then have two states. The difference between the two states is how light interacts with each of the states. So, for example, let's say shine a light on the window. One of the states could have a lot of light passing through it, where the other state might only have a little bit of light passing through it. Any questions so far? Cool. So, one thing my boss wanted was to maximize the amount of light passing through one state and minimize the amount of light passing through the other state. So my job was to figure out what that window looked like. You may think, what do you mean what the window looks like? It's a window. Well, if you zoom in on the window, you'll see there's lots of little layers stacked on top of each other. And these layers could be different materials and also different thicknesses. So I had to figure out what each of those layers looked like. So I used a machine learning algorithm called gradient descent. Now, what was this used for? It wasn't used for like windows and buildings. Not that kind of window. We put a tiny window in front of a light sensor to protect it from too much light or certain types of light. Okay, that didn't sound as bad as I thought it would, but I did have to refer back to my slides a lot. And my slides are literally word for word on like how it is, but that like, which was a lot harder to do than I thought. Most people will just say, do like an outline. I don't have an outline written here, do I? No. Okay. Yeah, have an outline and just go after the outline, which is a lot easier because if you're just reciting from like a paragraph that you wrote, it's going to sound very monotone. You can write it out word for word, but you have to like make sure it flows and like make a lot of little changes. Like my first draft, if I just read it, it would just sound like it would sound like I was reading something. It also has to really fit your tone. That's one thing I found. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Time and resource management story. Ooh, this is a good one. I didn't realize, but I could also use this for achievement. This one is not written out. What? Okay, no, I think it is written out. It's just not. I thought it was before. Okay. So tell me about a time where you had where your time and resource management skills were stressed, or something along those lines. So I'll tell you about my sophomore year in college. So my sophomore year in college, I was both a math and physics major. I worked at my university's ice arena. I was a lab worker in the nuclear physics lab, and I was a treasurer of my fraternity. So the three main tools I used to manage my time to fill all those responsibilities is I use structure, which is what to do and when to do it, discipline, which is actually doing it, and then leveraging my situation-specific advantages, which I could talk about for a while. So, okay, I was able to fill all those responsibilities. And you may think, okay, you had 5 responsibilities. I assume you compromised on the quality of some of them. I can tell you confidently that I didn't. At the end of the year, for my courses, 2/3 of my grades were A's, and the other third were A pluses. I was promoted at my ice rink job. I never missed my quota as a lab worker. And as treasurer, I netted us another $3,000 in revenue, which cleared our debt. And then there's a follow-up question of what advantages did I leverage. I think the one I go over is, so some tasks I could complete on my phone, which is important because I would spend at least 30 minutes per day, which is at least 2.5 hours per week, waiting for the bus or on the bus from class or work. So during that time, I can't easily pull out my laptop or a worksheet, but I can easily pull out my phone and work. So I remember in one class, Greek and Roman mythology, I was able to do the homework and study for all the tests only in the time waiting for the bus or on the bus. I didn't have to spend a single minute studying that, like working on that class in the library or in my dorm room. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, but the other format of a behavioral interview question that you can do is CAR instead of STAR, because situation and task may kind of seem the same sometimes, which I agree. So CAR is instead challenge. Then there's also an extension to CAR. You can do CAROL, which is the L stands for lessons learned, which means you can basically spell out what you learned from the story, which I feel is kind of what I did on the resume. I would literally put in the skills that I learned. Okay, and then why data analysis? Ooh, this one's, nope, not the video. Okay. Okay. So tell me why you want to do data analysis and why you applied for this company. So in high school, I liked math and physics. I was also really good at it. I was on math team and I got the Brightest Future in Math Award for my graduating class, which came with $1,000. Pretty neat. So in my mind, the next step is to enroll as both a math and physics major, not having my future career in mind. I really enjoyed my first few years because math and physics I find is really difficult, so it really stressed my problem solving skills. However, when my senior year rolled around, I was thinking about what career I want to have for the rest of my life. Math and physics wasn't it because the application of the material I was learning was incredibly thinning, niche, and also not talked about very often. So, now what? I need some time to figure this out. So I take my foot off the gas, stop maintaining my 4.0 GPA, and start reflecting on what I find engaging and more applicable to the world. So I loved fiddling around with statistics. I didn't know at the time that it was called exploratory data analysis, but I would do a lot of light versions of that on miscellaneous data sets all the time. And in my first internship at Sandia National Labs, my boss gave me a machine learning project because he saw that I liked working with data. So, finished college, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to start researching different data jobs, engineering, science, analyst, and started learning the relevant material. And then I came across your company. I think there's some work that could be done with linking or connecting here to starting to research for jobs. Also, some of these stories, it seems I've gone off script a bit, so they need to be edited a bit. And then, okay, what are some things that I didn't talk about? I could do the about me. Yeah, so the about me, basically just background experience, and then preferably I would link it to the job. So I'll just do about me. So, hi, I'm Alec, and I just graduated from the University of Illinois, where I studied math and physics. I interned at Sandia National Labs, where I did machine learning in Python, working with a material called vanadium dioxide. I was also the manager at my university's ice arena, where I got to learn and practice. This isn't the most updated version of this. I don't know where it is. Well, oops. Okay. Collaboration, communication, not well done enough yet. How do I like to be managed? Okay. I don't have a story written out for this, but I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so these were the main three things. So the main three things I look in my manager or my boss is one, collaborative and open communication. I appreciate a manager. By the way, this is ChatGPT quotes, which sound like a LinkedIn post. Revolting. I can't say it like that. But the three main things I look for is good communication. So being able to ask my boss for questions and feedback, and also being updated on what tasks I need to do. And then the second is clear expectations. Like, what are my job expectations? What do you want me to do? And how can I excel or know what to do? This also keeps me really focused and motivated. And then the third is someone who will provide some professional development. So opportunities for learning and growth, as well as skill building, are important to me. Yeah, so those are the three things. I'd also, for professional development, want to link this to how I can help out the team that I'm working on. And then there was what I want to gain out of this experience. Yes, here. Okay, here. Oh, that's right. Okay, so from the experience, so I'd say I would have a genuine interest in this industry because of its blank, making a good fit for my long-term career aspirations. Yeah, because I assume if I'm applying for a job, I would like the industry, so I would say I like the industry. And then also, if I like the company's product, I would say I like to gain experience working with the product. And then also professional growth, which is the same as I mentioned for the how do I like to be managed part. And then, and then meaningful personal connections, which I will only include if it seems like the manager cares about that. If they don't, I'm not going to mention it. If they do seem social, then I will put it in, because I would like to, I don't like being super isolated all the time. So yeah, making personal connections at work, I think, makes work a lot more fun. So okay, yeah, I think that's it. Peace.